Su King and I were reborn together. In our past life, I was the younger brother she personally chose from the orphanage and later her husband. We loved each other until our hair turned white. In this life, when the Su parents beckoned for me to come forward just as they had before, the young Su King stopped them. "Dad, Mom, I don't want him. I want this boy to be my brother." She took the hand of the boy next to me, the adopted son of the Lee family who had died young in our previous life. Her eyes were ice cold as she looked at me. "You stole Biken's life and caused his tragic death. This lifetime, it's your turn to taste the hell he died in." I understood in an instant. So this time, she wanted to be the dragon-slaying hero who saves the prince. "Will you come with me?" I looked at Mrs. Lee standing before me. Then I looked at the resolute departing backs of the person I had spent decades with, and the boy she now led away. I nodded. Fine. This life I wanted to live differently, too. When I walked out of the orphanage, the Su family hadn't left yet. Seeing me, Su King nervously pushed the boy into the car and snapped at me viciously. "Su Ziayuan, even if you kneel and beg me, I won't take you with me. The Su family doesn't welcome you. A thief like you belongs in the man-eating Lee family." She shoved me away and slammed the car door shut. I stumbled, not yet steady on my feet. The Su family's motorcade had already sped away. The dust kicked up by the exhaust was so thick it almost blinded me. A black Maybach pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Mrs. Lee's cold face. "You want to go to the Su family?" I shook my head. "The Lee family is very good." Mrs. Lee paused, then gave me a faint glance. "What's your name?" I answered softly, "Ziayuan. From now on, you are Lee Ziayuan." Her words were concise, but I understood her meaning. I quickly got into the car and said obediently, "Yes, mother." Mrs. Lee raised an eyebrow but said nothing more, leaning back against the seat and closing her eyes to rest. I took the hint and remained silent. The car drove into the Lee family's villa estate. I followed Mrs. Lee inside. I watched her put down her bag, then she casually looked up, as if speaking to someone in the air. "Li Qing, this is your new younger brother, Li Ziayuan." I froze. I subconsciously followed her gaze upward. My eyes met a face on the second-floor landing, by the atrium railing. A girl even more beautiful than Su King, almost unfairly so. I had no idea how long she had been observing from there. I was stunned. So this was the Li family's Li Qing. In my past life, not long after I was adopted by the Su family, Li Qing was sent abroad by hers. By the time I saw her again, many years had passed. By then, she had inherited the Li family business, but her face was disfigured. Because of her scarred face and iron-fisted methods, she was nicknamed the Shi-Yama of the business world. I curved my eyes into a smile and greeted her, "Sister." But Li Qing acted as if she hadn't heard, still leaning on the railing, her expression distant and indifferent. "Don't mind her, she doesn't like to talk." Mrs. Lee called for the butler to show me around, and then she left. As I was about to step out of the main hall with the butler, on some strange impulse, I turned back, and my gaze collided with the girl's deathly still pupils. My heart skipped a beat. Before my smile could form, Li Qing had already looked away and turned to enter her room. It had been over a month since I was brought to the Lee family. Aside from that first day at the orphanage, I hadn't seen Mrs. Lee again. Li Qing, on the other hand, I would occasionally run into at the dinner table. Each time I would greet her sweetly, "Sister," but she never once responded. I didn't mind, though, because I was very, very busy. Although Mrs. Lee was absent, she had packed my schedule full of lessons. Etiquette, languages, business knowledge, equestrianism. And it was summer vacation. I was studying from morning till night, so busy I was constantly on the move. Even the family's housekeeper, Auntie Chen, looked at me with pity in her eyes when she saw the bruises from my writing lessons. "Young master, should I tell madam you'd like to take a day off?" I put on my shoes and shook my head. "That's not necessary." When she first brought me home, Mrs. Lee had said, "A child of the Lee family is born to be the best, even if you are only an adopted son. The young master at the Su family next door doesn't have to work so hard." Auntie Chen sighed, handing me my school bag. "They've been making a racket all morning. I hear the whole family is preparing to go abroad for the holidays." I knew Auntie Chen was saying this to stand up for me, feeling that I wasn't enjoying the childhood fun a boy my age should have. I stood up and took the bag. "Auntie Chen, I'm not tired. These are things I want to learn." Perhaps in the eyes of others, the Lee family was a hell. But to me, it was not. The Lee family was an old money dynasty, possessing a foundation and resources that a nouveau rich family like the Sus could never compare to. Here I could grow better. Even if the Lee family's clan relationships were complex, even if the Lee relatives didn't accept me, Mrs. Lee was demanding and cold, and Lee Ching was indifferent and distant. As I was lost in thought, a small white kitten suddenly darted to my feet. It was immediately followed by an annoyed and angry male voice. "Guai Guai, you've got the wrong person. Come back. Sister, help me get Guai Guai back." "Silly brother." I picked up the kitten and stood up. My gaze met that of a girl walking towards me, her face wreathed in an indulgent smile. It was Su King. When Su Kinghe saw me, the smile on her face froze. Her brow furrowed, and her eyes instantly filled with disgust. "You actually followed us here. You're like a ghost that won't go away." She sneered, making no effort to hide her malice. "You don't actually think I'll soften if you wait here, do you? In your dreams." "Ziayuan." Su Baikin's delighted voice cut her off. He walked up to me, saying happily, "This is great. I never thought I'd see you here after leaving the orphanage. Is that car waiting for you?" He took the kitten from me and looked curiously at the car parked a short distance behind me. One look and his face turned deathly pale. "Ziayuan, you were really adopted by that Lee family next door." Just as I was about to answer, I inadvertently saw the keychain bracelet on his wrist, and my gaze paused. Su Baikin noticed my stare and unnaturally pulled down his sleeve, covering the bracelet. I pretended not to see and nodded. "Yes, the Lee family. So now you're surnamed Lee. You're called Lee Ziayuan." I glanced at Su King, whose face was flushed with embarrassment from her misunderstanding. "Yes. Are the people in the Lee family really scary? I heard that the Lee family's daughter is crazy and a mute. Is that true?" he asked in a flurry of questions, pointing mysteriously in the direction of the Lee estate. I frowned. I was about to refute him, but Su Baikin didn't give me a chance. "Ziayuan, are you learning archery?" he asked, tilting his head to look at my riding and archery uniform. "Yes, I still have things to do." I was trying to think of an excuse to leave when Su Kinghe interrupted impatiently. "Baikin, what's the point of wasting breath on someone like him? Let's go." Su Baikin said, "Oh," and scratched the back of his head. "Don't mind her. My sister isn't usually like this. She's very gentle. I don't know what's wrong with her today." "Sister, wait for me." He took off after her. I watched for a second, then turned away as well. Behind me, the wind carried Su Baikin, and Su Kingha's conversation to my ears. "Sister, the Lee family is too strict. Ziayuan is the same age as me, but he has to go to classes every day. I saw he's covered in bruises from falling. It's so pitiful. HMPH, what's the use of him learning all that? Some people just aren't fated to enjoy a comfortable life. Our Baikin only needs to be happy like a little prince for his whole life. The son of the Su family doesn't need to suffer like that. Dad, Mom, and you are the best." "Suffer? Is that so?" So the Su family saw effort as suffering. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. In my past life, the Su parents had indeed doted on me, but they never approved of me learning any skills. I wanted to learn riding and archery. They objected. "Absolutely not. What if you scrape your skin and get a scar? What well-bred young lady would want you then?" When I was bullied, I wanted to learn some self-defense. They refused that too. Why would a young master from a prestigious family need to learn that himself? The Su family has bodyguards. No one can bully you. Later, I wanted to study business and finance. They also said, "What's the point of learning so much? Having your sister in the Su family is enough." It seemed like boundless indulgence. But in reality, they were raising me to be a useless dependent who could only rely on the Su family. But Mrs. Lee would tell me, "A person of the Lee family should learn everything, strive for everything." Summer vacation passed in a flash. Soon the new school year began. Mrs. Lee had already transferred me to the same international school as Lee Ching. It was the same school Su King and I had attended in our past life. On the first day of school, I was in the car early. When Lee Ching opened the door, I greeted her with a bright smile. "Good morning, sister. Mother said we'll be going to school together from now on." Lee Ching's movement paused for a second. Then she silently sat down in the seat farthest from me. The next day, I did the same. The third day. The fourth day. After this continued for 2 months, I made an unexpected discovery. Although Lee Ching never responded to me, sometimes when I was late for breakfast and rushed out of the house, I would find her waiting by the car with her backpack on. I hid my surprise and smiled. "Sister, you're the best." At times like these, Lee Ching would glance at me faintly as usual, turn her head without a word, and get in the car. Except this time, she stepped into the car with her right foot first. I curved my lips into a smile. What a good change indeed. One day after school, I waited in the academic building for a long time, but Li Qing never came out, and I couldn't reach her. Just as I was getting anxious, a thought flashed through my mind. I suddenly remembered. At this exact time in my past life, a major incident had occurred at the school gate. Back then, I was buried in my studies, trying to catch up with the international school's curriculum. I vaguely heard my classmates buzzing about trouble from the Li family. Apparently, something had happened to their children. Many years later, I overheard someone mention that the CEO of the Li Corporation, Li Qing, had been maliciously disfigured during high school. Could it be today? If it was true, this is bad. There's no time. Realizing this, I quickly sent a message to the driver, telling him to come find us behind the school if he didn't see me at the gate. Then I sprinted towards the alley behind the school. Li Qing, please be okay. When I arrived, Li Qing was cornered by several flamboyantly dressed delinquent girls, along with 2 or 3 young men who looked like they were from off-campus. Haha, so Miss Li really is a mute. No matter what we do, she won't even scream. A mute can't tattle. You don't want the Li family coming after you, do you? Damn it, this bitch dares to glare at us. With a face like that, she was born to be a vixen. One of the girls, who clearly looked like a student, spat on the ground and pulled out a utility knife, slashing it towards Li Qing's face. My heart tightened. In my peripheral vision, I saw a baseball bat on the ground. I took a deep breath, psyched myself up, and then charged out, shouting, "I've already called the police." I rushed into the crowd, swinging the bat wildly. At that moment, I was grateful for having paid attention in my recent physical education classes. The group was caught off guard, and for a moment they scattered from my blows. Because I said I'd called the police, they backed down. Damn it, this bitch got lucky. The group left, cursing under their breath. Seeing them gone, I hurried over to check on Li Qing. There was a bloody gash on her face. Luckily, the wound wasn't deep, but her hands and legs were injured. "Sister, hold on, I'll take you home." I helped Li Qing up to leave, but was suddenly kicked to the ground by a vicious force. "Damn it, Sister Chen, I told you this little brat was lying. Called the police." Tusk. "You little punk, haven't even grown any hair yet, and you're already a liar." A mute and a liar, a perfect match, ha ha ha. The one called Sister Chen was so angry she couldn't stop swearing, kicking me in the back again and again. The pain was so intense I couldn't help but lower my head, only to meet Li Qing's terrified eyes. With trembling lips, I forced a smile and whispered reassuringly, "Sister, don't be afraid." Li Qing's gaze suddenly froze. I shielded her, refusing to back down an inch. The fists on my back fell even more furiously. Just as the next blow was about to land, Li Qing, who had been passive until now, suddenly moved. She lunged at the person closest to me, biting down on her hand like a madwoman. Her sudden frenzy stunned Sister Chen and the others for a few seconds, but she was outnumbered and was quickly pinned down. Fists rained down on her head and body, and someone even pulled out an iron rod. Is it still impossible to change the outcome? Just as despair filled my heart, I heard voices and footsteps from the alley's entrance. "Is that Uncle Driver?" I struggled to open my eyes, looking on with hope. In my line of sight, a pair of white sneakers appeared. The owner of the shoes stood silhouetted against the light at the mouth of the alley. Sister Chen and her group immediately glared over. "What are you looking at, you little brat?" "Brat?" It wasn't Uncle Driver. I forced my eyes wide, trying to see the person's face, but my vision was too blurred with blood. Just then, someone called to her from a distance. "Sister Kingha, why are you just standing there? The strawberry cake shop is this way." The newcomer was silent for a moment. "Okay, I'm coming." I blinked my dry eyes and whispered softly, "Sister." The person's footsteps paused, but in the end, she didn't look back, slowly leading the boy away. The boy couldn't resist a curious glance into the alley and immediately screamed in terror. "Ah, sister, it looks like someone's hurt over there. Did you see?" The next second, his eyes were covered. "Don't look, it's dirty," Su Qingha said softly. From a distance, I thought I heard her murmur, "Little Baiken, I found you early this life. I will protect your innocence. You won't have to suffer the torments of the Li family and end your life so hastily." In a daze, I remembered her on her deathbed in our past life, repeatedly murmuring, "It's all my fault. If only I had found you sooner." I had thought she was talking about the time I was kidnapped and left severely disabled by her business rivals while protecting her. I had even choked back sobs to comfort her. "King He, as long as you're by my side, it's okay. I don't mind. We'll be together in the next life, too." It turned out her regret from the past life had nothing to do with me. What she couldn't let go of was that she had been with me that day, and thus couldn't save Li Baiken in time. So in this life, she chose to keep him by her side, protecting him completely. It turned out she came here today not to save me, but to witness with her own eyes how I, the thief, was being bullied in place of her white moonlight. But in our past life, I vaguely remembered hearing classmates say that after the incident with the two Lee children, Li Qing was sent abroad. Li Baiken, however, was not allowed to go with her, and his treatment in the Li family worsened significantly. A male classmate who knew the inside story had hinted that on that day, he had seen Li Baiken abandon Li Qing. Li Qing fought desperately to protect Li Baiken, but when he ran, he didn't even look back. But Su King seemed convinced that her white moonlight was the victim. Heh. So did Su King really think Li Baiken was so pure and kind. I let out a soft laugh and wiped my eyes. Then I climbed up and desperately clung to one of their legs. No matter how they kicked or cursed me, I refused to let go. Don't hit my sister, until I could no longer hold on. My vision plunged into complete darkness. When I woke up, a head of dark hair was resting by my bedside. The pungent smell of disinfectant told me I was in a hospital. It seemed Uncle Driver had arrived with help. I tried to sit up, but the movement must have been too loud as it woke Li Qing. She opened her beautiful, almond-shaped eyes and stared at me without blinking. After a long moment, she raised her hand and touched the gauze on my forehead. "Brother, does it hurt?" It seemed she hadn't spoken for a very, very long time. Her voice was a bit hoarse but not unpleasant. In fact, it was quite lovely. But I was still stunned. Li Qing actually spoke to me. I wasn't the only one startled. Even Mrs. Li, who had just pushed open the door, had a look of disbelief on her face. Was that Qing speaking just now? She had lost her usual composure. "Qing, can you say a few words to Mother, please?" Li Qing only glanced at her before turning back to stare at my wound, refusing to speak again. I felt a bit awkward, wanting to comfort her but not knowing where to start. "Mother, just now, sister, she." Mrs. Li shook her head, her eyes red. "It's all right, we'll take it slow. Qing needs time." She didn't continue. Auntie Chen, who was behind her, entered at the right time with a lunch box. During lunch, Auntie Chen said the matter in the alley had been investigated. It was just a group of local thugs who got ideas after hearing the Li family was rich. One of them was even a student from our school. The adults in the group would not escape prison time, and the student had already been expelled. I nodded, my gaze falling on Li Qing, who was eating quietly. Who would have thought that in our past life, a single evil thought from these dregs of society would drag such a beautiful person into the abyss? Fortunately, in this life, she was safe and sound. Seeing that I wasn't eating, Li Qing looked at me strangely. "Brother, eat." I came back to my senses and put some food on her plate. "You eat too, sister." Just after we finished eating, Li Qing was caught by a nurse who burst in. Only then did I learn that she had snuck over from another ward. Before she left, she patted my head. "Brother, get well soon." Those simple words made the Li family members present tear up with emotion again. Auntie Chen also secretly wiped the corner of her eye. Li Qing left. Mrs. Li stayed, just standing there watching Li Qing's retreating back. She wasn't wearing makeup today, and it was as if all her sharp edges had been smoothed away, making her look much gentler. Li Qing wasn't always like this. She was very sensible, composed, and far more outstanding than many of her peers. Back then, everyone praised her as a genius girl, not a little mute or autistic. She sat down beside me, tears welling in her eyes. It was all because of that accident 4 years ago. I was stunned. Mrs. Li said that Li Qing once had a younger brother, Li Yue. Li Yue was the son of Mr. Li's younger brother. After Mr. Li and his brother's family died in an accident years ago, Mrs. Li had to carry the entire Li Corporation on her shoulders. She also brought Li Yue home and raised him as her own son. That was a difficult time for the Li family. Without Mr. Li, the corporation was like a piece of meat left out in the open, and everyone wanted a bite. Mrs. Li had to harden her heart, her methods becoming increasingly ruthless, which naturally created many enemies. 4 years ago, the Li children were kidnapped. 6-year-old Li Yue saw his sister being beaten and rushed forward, biting the kidnapper's hand and refusing to let go. The enraged kidnapper struck him on the head again and again with a club. Li Qing, who witnessed the entire process, was never the same after she was rescued. She never smiled again, never spoke a word. Mrs. Li tried everything, but nothing worked. As a last resort, she took a friend's advice and tried adopting another, younger brother. Mrs. Li stood up and walked to the window. She said I wasn't the first one to be adopted. Qing hasn't been this close to anyone in a long time. She likes you very much. A week later, I was discharged and returned to the Li family. The attitude of the people around me had changed. If before they saw me as an insignificant adopted son who could be sent away at any time, now they treated me as a true young master of the Lee family. But my lessons didn't decrease. In fact, there were more. In Mrs. Lee's words, "You will enter the Lee Corporation in the future. Without ability, how will you command respect?" The Lee family members who heard this were all shocked. They looked at me with a mixture of vigilance and scrutiny. I had no time to ponder their thoughts. Instead, I looked at Li Qing in a panic, afraid she would be unhappy. But I found her resting her chin on her hand, looking at me and saying haltingly, "Brother, not afraid. You're the best." Looking at Li Qing's sparkling eyes, my own grew moist. I nodded forcefully. MMM. Mrs. Lee's eyes softened as well. "Qing needs to work hard too. Otherwise, if Xiaoyuan surpasses you, you'll have to rely on your little brother to protect you in the future." "No." Hearing this, Li Qing immediately shot to her feet. "I protect brother." She even performed a set of martial arts moves on the spot. Ever since the incident at school, Li Qing had been practicing her martial arts even more diligently. Mrs. Lee and I exchanged a look and burst out laughing. Looking at the anxious Li Qing, I smiled. Mrs. Lee once said, "It is Qing's good fortune to have you." This lifetime, coming to the Lee family, wasn't it my good fortune as well? Time flew by. Under the Lee family's dedicated cultivation, I became the other family's child that many parents talked about. On the school's honor roll, my name would occasionally appear alongside the upperclassman Li Qing. In contrast, Su Baiken, who was a top student in our past life, was too busy playing and never once made the list. And Su King, a poor student in both lives, was even less of a contender. Coupled with the fact that the Lee and Su families were already distant, it seemed that in this life, Su King and I were destined to have no further connection. Only on a few rare occasions, when I was looking at the honor roll, I would catch a glimpse of Su King standing behind the crowd, her expression unreadable. "Sister, what are you staring at over there? Our names aren't on it," Su Baiken would ask, confused. "It's nothing." When I looked back again, she would already be leading Su Baiken away. In the midst of these days, I turned 18 and was about to take the Gaokao. Li Qing had accepted an invitation from a foreign university 3 years ago and was now studying abroad. On the day of my exam, despite my repeated refusals, Li Qing dropped her research project and flew back overnight to be with me. Brother's business is the most important. I had no choice but to relent. After finishing the last exam, I walked out of the school. From a distance, I saw Li Qing leaning against the car in a white dress. Her bright face attracted the attention of many people around us. My hopes of keeping a low profile were shattered. As expected, wherever Li Qing was, a commotion was sure to follow. She was no longer the little mute girl everyone used to mock. Now, with her cool and transcendent aura, she could easily make passing boys blush. I quickly walked over and urged her, "Sister, let's go." Though puzzled, Li Qing obediently took my school bag. "You're not happy that I came to pick you up." I had no time to explain and quickly pushed her into the car. "No, it's not that. Didn't we invite friends to meet up? If we're late, they'll start complaining." We had arranged to meet up with some friends we'd known since childhood to celebrate my sister's return and the end of my exams. After the gathering, someone suggested going to the racetrack for a few laps. Li Qing and I had nothing else to do, so we went along. At the racetrack, a small recreational race was in progress. "Who's the winner?" a friend asked, looking at the big screen in surprise. "Su Qingha, she's back in the country too, and she races. Is she any good?" Su Qingha's grades were average. Like Li Qing, she hadn't taken the Gaokao, but unlike her, she had gone abroad for a token degree. Still, as the future heiress of the Su Corporation, everyone knew her, so all eyes turned to the track. As if in answer to our question, a flashy red race car shot across the finish line. A young woman stepped out of the car, squinting as she basked in the cheers of the crowd. Years had passed, and she had shed her youthful immaturity. She was becoming more and more like the her from our past life. Her personality had always been flamboyant. From the family and friends section, a young man in black casual wear ran out, hugged the woman, and gave her a kiss. "Sister King, you're so beautiful." Their relationship was clear. In our past life, as the official adopted son of the Su family, I had faced many obstacles when I got together with Su King. In this life, I didn't know how Su King had convinced her parents, but Su Baiken was not recognized as the Su family's adopted son. To the public, he was the son of a friend staying with them temporarily. Hehe. Looking at it now, she had certainly gone to great lengths. At this moment, the handsome man and the beautiful woman were a combination that ignited the crowd. A friend clicked his tongue. Looks like the Sue family has booked this place for the day. Let's go change of venue. I pulled my gaze away and was about to leave with everyone else when a commotion erupted ahead. Sue King and Sue Baiken, fingers intertwined, were walking towards us, surrounded by a crowd. The two groups met unexpectedly. Sue King's gaze passed over the crowd and landed on me, a flash of surprise in her eyes. She froze for a moment, then, as if by reflex, let go of Sue Baiken's hand. "Sister," Sue Baiken called out in dissatisfaction, turning to glare at me. "Lee Ziayuan, what are you doing here?" He scanned me viciously. I hadn't seen him in a while, and his gaze was suddenly filled with hostility. I found it strange, and then he continued. "Could it be you heard Sister Kingha was back and came specifically to watch her race?" Hearing this, Sue Kingha paused, her eyes sweeping over me nonchalantly, as if to say I knew it. I was speechless. Did I look that bored? Li Qing frowned as well. She took a step forward, shielding me, her small frame seeming to hold infinite strength. Seeing Li Qing's action, Sue Kingha's eyes darkened, and she finally spoke. Her tone was light. "Ziayuan Baiken is blunt, don't mind him." "Sister," Sue Baiken protested, shouting, "why are you being so polite to him? Who knows if he's following you on purpose?" "Baiken, that's enough." Sue King had cut him off in a low voice, her gaze involuntarily drifting back to me beside Li Qing. "Even if it's true, you should let him save some face." She was shocked to find that in the few years we hadn't seen each other, I had changed a lot. The bearing cultivated by the Li family was something the petty Sue Baiken couldn't compare to. "Miss Sue, you'd better control your precious little brother. Don't let him bite everyone he sees." One of my friends, who couldn't stand the siblings' behavior, sneered. "Ziayuan is here with Li Qing to celebrate the end of his gaokao, not to watch some, child's play of a race like yours." The sarcasm in his words was obvious. "What do you mean by that?" Sue Baiken's eyes widened. "Sister King had just won first place and you're calling it child's play." Sue King's face darkened slightly. She had always been proud. Fresh off the high of her victory, being mocked now inevitably angered her. "Miss Li, since we've run into each other here, and that last race wasn't very satisfying, are you interested in a match?" She ignored everyone else, her gaze fixed squarely on Li Qing. Li Qing frowned and was about to step forward, but I held her back and shook my head. I didn't want her to get entangled with Sue King. Seeing this, Sue Kingha chuckled. "If you don't dare, then forget it. The heiress of the Li family is nothing special after all." The provocation was extreme. The air seemed to freeze. My friends' faces turned ugly, but no one dared to accept the challenge on Li Qing's behalf. They knew she hadn't touched a race car in years. My expression remained calm as I let go of her hand. Li Qing also raised her hand, and just like when we were children, ruffled my hair. "Do you want to see your sister win?" I nodded and smiled. "Go for it, sister." Li Qing turned and walked towards the track, without even a glance at Sue King. Sue King had never been ignored like this before, and her face was so dark it looked like it could drip water. "All for show," she gritted out, walking towards her car with a grim face. On the racetrack, the starting gun fired. Sue King's signature red car shot out, leaving Li Qing's black car behind. The roar of the engines was deafening. Some people should just go back to being good students if they can't handle it. Or better yet, find someone to marry. Don't pretend to be something you're not, Sue Baiken said smugly, looking at me. "It's just the beginning. What are you so proud of? Falling behind at the start and you still think she can catch up to Sister King? Are you kidding me?" The people around them chimed in with agreement. My friends were fuming but couldn't argue back. I watched the track silently, saying nothing. Until, at a high-speed corner, the black car executed a textbook-level late break into the turn, overtook the red car, and was the first to cross the finish line. The racetrack fell silent. Sue Baiken fell silent. Someone in the crowd said hesitantly, "That person's cornering technique looks familiar, like last year's Triple Crown champion, V God." She spoke very softly, as if she couldn't believe it. I remained quiet, my expression unchanged. When Li Qing was 11, she had won the International Youth Cup and was called a racing prodigy. Even though she had taken a break, she had picked it up again in recent years. Last year, she had swept the Triple Crown championship, but she was low-key and never showed her face, so few people knew what she looked like. Li Qing pushed open the car door, walked straight to me and held out her hand. "Brother, let's go home." "Okay." I smiled and took her hand. Behind us were Sue Baiken's flustered attempts at comfort and Sue King's face, twisted with rage. In the blink of an eye, the Gaokao results were out. I was the top scorer. I wasn't surprised, but Mrs. Li and Li Qing were overjoyed. They said that once my university acceptance letter arrived, they would take me on a trip abroad. I said I still had many classes to finish. Li Qing frowned. Ziayuan, you're too tense. You should go out and relax. Mrs. Li also said, no matter what, the Li family will always be your support. Do you understand? I was slightly taken aback. I suddenly realized that ever since my rebirth, I had been pushing myself too hard. It turned out, not being chosen by Su King had hurt me more deeply than I had imagined. That's why I had been almost cruelly demanding of myself, desperate to gain the Li family's approval. Afraid of being abandoned again, I looked at the two pairs of concerned eyes before me. A warmth spread through my heart. I went along with their plan. On the day we left for the airport, we ran into the Su family. The atmosphere around them didn't seem very good. The Su parents had grim faces. Su King's expression was also flat. Su Baiken followed sullenly beside her, unusually silent. Su Baiken was caught cheating on the Gaokao and had his results nullified. Now the Su family is the laughingstock of high society, Mrs. Li said with a smile, retracting her gaze. Afraid of losing face, they're rushing to send him abroad before school even starts, hoping to quell the scandal. I was a little surprised. Was Su Baiken crazy? What was he thinking being so bold? In his situation, couldn't he just go abroad for a token degree? Why take such a risk and bring shame upon the Su family? I shook my head, not bothering to dwell on it. What did it have to do with me? As we were boarding, I felt a gaze on me. I turned my head to look and saw Su King not far away. Caught staring, she froze for a second, her expression complicated. Congratulations, top scorer. Thank you. I turned my head back indifferently. Su King was stunned again, then took a step forward as if wanting to chase after me anxiously. Ziayuan, but she was held back by Su Baiken, who glared at me with venom. Sister, he doesn't even want to talk to you. Let go, Su King snapped, shoving Su Baiken away. Su Baiken stumbled and fell, and the grievances that had been building up for so long finally erupted. He didn't understand why his sister, who had always doted on him, had become so cold recently. Are you regretting it? But you were the one who didn't want him first. That one sentence rooted Su King to the spot. It was my turn in line. I didn't look back. I followed the Li family through the boarding gate. Hawaii, here we come. The days passed one by one. I entered university, constantly absorbing new knowledge and slowly learning to utilize the resources I had. In my sophomore year, I started to form my own research team. Every member of the team was as outstanding as I was, if not more so. To support me, Mrs. Li gave me full operational control of a relatively small subsidiary under the Li Corporation. The team's first project was a great success, pushing the subsidiary to new heights. Subsequent research achievements allowed the subsidiary to rival the parent company several times. As a rising star in the business world, I began to attract attention from all sides. When I graduated, Li Qing returned to the country and officially joined the Li Corporation headquarters. Many people were waiting to see the struggle between the Li family's eldest daughter and the adopted son. They thought that since Li Qing went straight to headquarters while I only inherited a subsidiary, I would surely be dissatisfied. However, I was not. On the contrary, I fully supported Li Qing. With my and Mrs. Li's support, as well as her own exceptional abilities, Li Qing quickly established a firm footing. At the same time, the Li Corporation announced that the subsidiary under my control would henceforth be separated from the Li Group and renamed the Xinghai Group. That day, fireworks lit up the sky above the Xinghai Group's top floor all night long. Li Qing stood with me. She said, Ziayuan, you must remember the Li Corporation will always be the Xinghai Group's support. That's not necessarily true, I smiled and teased her. Who knows, maybe one day Xinghai will be the Li Corporation's support sister. Li Qing smiled back. Yes, my brother is the most capable. I turned my head and looked at the neon lights below, a smile playing on my lips. This was my deal with Mrs. Li. Xinghai was mine, and in return I would always support Li Qing. Just one subsidiary? I thought you would want something else like half of the Li Corporation, Mrs. Li had said back then, raising an eyebrow. Who knows, maybe Mother would have agreed. No, I shook my head. What I want is something that belongs only to me, completely to Li Ziayuan. Having lived 2 lives, I firmly believed that only what was completely in my hands was controllable. As an outstanding graduate, I was invited by my alma mater to participate in a riding and archery competition, representing the school. For me, such a competition was a rare moment of relaxation amidst my busy work life. As expected, I easily won the championship. After coming down from the podium, I was surrounded by school officials. After finally breaking free, I was stopped again. Ziayuan, Su Qingha was there too. This was the first time we had met since she returned to the country to inherit the Su Corporation. She ignored the resentful-looking Su Baiken, walked up to me, a hint of nostalgia in her eyes. You've become more and more outstanding. There was admiration in her eyes, disappointment, and regret. I suddenly felt that this look was very familiar. In our past life, I had accompanied her to a banquet. Li Baiken, as the adopted son of the Li family, had gone on stage and played a famous piece of music. At that time, the look in her eyes as she watched him was exactly the same. For a moment, I wanted to laugh. After being reborn, Su Qingha's preferences hadn't changed. She always liked what she couldn't have. Looking at the dejected woman before me, I gave a polite nod as a greeting but didn't stop walking. She refused to let me go, blocking my path, her expression dark. What if I said we could start over? You could still be my brother or you could be my husband. I didn't understand. Did she think too highly of herself? I cut her off coldly. I don't know what you're talking about. If CEO Su has too much free time, you should worry more about the Su Corporation. Su Qingha's face instantly fell. As far as I knew, the Su Corporation was in trouble recently, with its stock price plummeting. In our past life, the Su Corporation had also faced such a crisis. Su Qingha was proud. Back then, I had used our faint childhood affection to beg the Shi-Yama, Li Qing, for help. Only then did we get assistance. In this life, the reborn Su Qingha had made plans in advance. Unfortunately, the foundation of the Su Corporation was already rotten to the core. This time, without the Li family's help, her limited abilities couldn't save it. The Su Corporation was in peril. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words with her. I turned to leave. Li Ziayuan, Sister King, and I are getting engaged. Can you stay away from us and stop showing up all the time? Su Baiken, who had been ignored the whole time, rushed over to block me like a madman. Su Qingha stopped him. Are you crazy? You can't help me with anything, so can you at least stop causing trouble? Su Qingha frowned fiercely. Su Baiken was pushed and stumbled. He looked at Su Qingha in disbelief, at the disgust and contempt in her eyes, and the last shred of hope in him shattered. I'm causing trouble. Su Baiken suddenly burst into crazed laughter, pointing at Su Qingha, then at me. Su Qingha, you just regret it, don't you? What, you think he'll be willing to come back to you? He's Li Ziayuan now. Who do you think you are? This time you were the one who chose me. Why are you the first one to get tired of it? I finally understood. So Su Baiken had been reborn too. No wonder he was acting so crazy. Shut up. Su Qingha glanced at me nervously and pulled Su Baiken up. I'm sorry, my brother made a fool of himself. What did you call me, brother? We're about to get engaged and you call me brother. Su Baiken yelled relentlessly. Su Qingha frowned but still explained in a low, patient voice. Su Baiken wouldn't listen at all. The two of them argued even more fiercely. I pretended not to understand anything and quickly left the venue. It wasn't until I got into Li Qing's car that I let out a huge sigh of relief. She smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Is there a ghost chasing you?" I nodded with a serious face. Yes, there is, a very scary one. And wasn't it true? To run into them, even at a simple event. What bad luck. The Xinghai Group was developing rapidly. Coupled with cross-industry cooperation with the Li Corporation, the strong alliance yielded remarkable results. I became a new magnate in the industry, a synonym for success. Now, when people mentioned me, it was no longer that adopted son of the Li family, but Li Ziayuan of the Xinghai Group. As for the Su Corporation, it was a shadow of its former self. I heard they had sold off many assets and even transferred a significant portion of their shares. Even though I, out of gratitude for being raised by them in my past life, restrained the Li and Xinghai groups from kicking them while they were down like other families. They were only barely holding on. The next time I saw Su Qingha was at a project bidding conference. I was sitting on the selection panel. Su Qingha and Su Baiken were sitting below. She glanced at me from afar, then looked away in embarrassment. The once prominent Su Corporation was now just one of many bidders. I retracted my gaze and paid them no more attention. During the mid-conference break, I went to the restroom. While I was washing my hands, Su Baiken appeared silently behind me. Let's talk. I glanced at him, dried my hands, and walked to the adjacent lounge. He followed. You've been reborn too, haven't you? Does it matter? I asked. He paused, then raised his voice. Su Qingha abandoned you and chose me. You really don't care. My expression was flat. Heh, she pushed you into that damn Li family. She knew Mrs. Li was a hypocrite and Li Qing was no good either. Watch your words. Now you're defending the Li family. He sneered, his eyes filled with venom. Oh, I forgot. You're the great young master of the Li family now. You're quite skilled getting them to treat you like a treasure. Feelings are mutual. How you treat people is how they treat you, I replied calmly. Ha, is that so? You know what I can't stand most is this attitude of yours, as if you want for nothing. Why, in our past life you were taken by the Su family, grew up in such a happy environment, and even married Sister King. And this life, even though you went to that hellhole of a Li family, you still managed to win their love. Even now, Su Qing's gaze has been stolen by you again. Why, where did I lose? Looking at Su Baikon's crazed state, I carefully took a step back. You're mistaken, Su Qingha only likes you. Weren't they about to get engaged? Hearing this, he threw his head back and laughed. Likes me. But the white moonlight she can't forget was never me. It was the original owner of this bracelet. It was you, Li Ziayuan. He tore the bracelet from his wrist, a smile uglier than a grimace on his face. Do you remember? When we were little, you saved a drowning girl at the orphanage gate. She was so beautiful, dressed so richly, so when you went to find the director, her family came looking. I pretended to be you and took this bracelet. She said she would come back. I waited and waited, only to see her take you back to the Su family. I just couldn't stand to see you happy, so I deliberately hinted at it in front of Sister King, and she was tempted too. But later he said hatefully, I just accidentally let some information slip and Mrs. Li wanted to kick me out. That psycho Li Qing even wanted to have me beaten to death. She did it on purpose. She held a grudge because I abandoned her in the alley. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have run out and nothing would have happened. Thank God everything could start over. But now Su Qing says she doesn't want to get engaged to me. She used to only have eyes for me. At that moment, I understood everything. I understood what Su Qinghe meant in our past life, when she said she wished she had found him sooner. Unfortunately, Su Baiken was still naive. The one Su Qing could never forget was never me, Li Ziayuan. She loved the unattainable young master of the Li family. It didn't matter if that person was Li Ziayuan or Li Baiken. In our past life, Su Baiken was the Li family's young master. Even if he wasn't favored, the halo and the upbringing were real. He was an unattainable flower on a high mountain. In this life, our roles were reversed. The light of unattainability in her eyes simply shifted to me. I looked past Su Baiken to Su Qing, who had appeared at some point, her face a mask of shock. I shook my head. You're wrong. What am I wrong about? What right do you have to judge me from your high horse? Su Baiken's rambling was cut off by Su Qing's furious roar. You lied to me, you useless piece of trash. If I hadn't chosen you, how would I have ended up in this situation? Her eyes were bloodshot as she stared at Su Baiken, panting heavily. A storm was brewing. I quickly exited, closing the lounge door behind me. At the end of the corridor, Li Qing stood against the light. She seemed to have been waiting for me for a long time, yet showed no trace of impatience. I hurried forward. Sister, let's go. Su Baiken stole internal documents from the Su Corporation and gave them to a rival. The Su family was thrown into chaos and nearly collapsed. It was because Su Qing refused to marry him, and even discussed with her parents sending him off into a marriage alliance to squeeze out his last bit of value. Su Baiken completely lost it. With a "if I can't have it, I'll destroy it" mentality, he took a desperate measure and defected to the rival. Less than 2 months after the bidding conference, I heard this news. I wasn't surprised about the stolen documents. Whether in the past life or this one, Su Baiken's true colors were the same. I heard about it from Li Qing, laughed, and moved on. I didn't expect more trouble to befall the Su family. Su Qing was hospitalized. She had been stabbed by Su Baiken. Apparently, Su Baiken hadn't gotten far that day before he was caught by the Su family. The family, soft-hearted, had wanted to talk to him and persuade him to change his ways. Who would have thought that not only would Su Baiken not listen, but he would also pull out a knife and lunge at Mrs. Su, who had doted on him since he was a child. It's all your fault, you old hag. If you hadn't given King that idea, why would she refuse to marry me? How could she bear to let me marry someone else? Su Qing rushed forward to block the blow. Even if Su Baiken had wanted to pull back the knife, it was too late. Now with Su Qing lying in the hospital, her life hanging in the balance, the Su family showed no mercy and sent him straight to the police. Theft of commercial secrets. Attempted murder. Su Baiken would likely spend the rest of his life in prison. A year later, the Xinghai Group was officially listed overseas. The Li family held a grand celebration for me, inviting countless celebrities from the political and business worlds. I wore a proper smile, moving with ease as I conversed with the titans of various industries. I was surrounded, showered with compliments. My gaze unintentionally drifted to a corner and saw a very uncomfortable-looking Su King. Her gown was still of fine make, but the style was long outdated, and you could even see signs of wear at the edges. I only looked for a moment before turning away. The Su family's presence at the banquet was the result of Mrs. Su's begging. Such a banquet was filled with influential figures. They wanted to seize another chance. Mrs. Li had relented, considering they were once neighbors. The Su family was now heavily in debt and had long since moved out of the villa district. When it was time for dancing, I turned down many invitations. As the guests began to disperse, I slipped out onto the terrace alone, wanting to catch my breath. The evening breeze was cool against my face. I was lost in thought when Su King quietly approached. Ziayuan. She looked at me, mesmerized. You've been reborn too, haven't you? We were together for so many years, you can't fool me. The night wind seemed to stop for a second. Her voice was very low. Back at the orphanage, you could have chosen to recognize me. We were so in love. Why? I turned and looked at her calmly. I just wanted to choose a path without you. And you, as it happens, did the same, didn't you? The words were like a cold blade, piercing straight through Su King's heart. She staggered back, her face deathly pale in the moonlight. Her lips trembled as she tried to say something in rebuttal, but found she couldn't utter a single word. That's right. She was the one who chose a different path first. What right did she have to question me? She turned away, lost and dejected. Her back stooped as if all her strength had been drained in an instant. I didn't look away until her figure had completely disappeared. Ziayuan. A clear, cool voice came from behind me. I turned to see Li Qing. She walked over, her gaze subtly sweeping over the direction Su King had just left. Then she handed me a cup of warm honey water. Are you tired? She asked softly, her tone one of pure concern. I took the cup and looked at Li Qing's exquisitely cool profile. Then I looked back into the banquet hall, at Mrs. Li, who was conversing elegantly with a guest. I'm not tired. I shook my head, leaned down, and gently rested my head on Li Qing's shoulder. Sister, do you know? This life of mine, it's truly been very good. I have a mother who, though strict, respects me greatly. I have a sister who, though small, always stands in front of me, shielding me from the wind and rain. The warmth of this moment was tangible, incredibly real. All the suffering and betrayal were in the past. This life, I wish myself a brilliant future.